Hello, my name is Crystal Petry, and you are watching another episode of the Crystal Petry Podcast, Season 4. She was on track to play college basketball until she tore her ACL. Then she tore the same one again. Add a divorce and a cancer diagnosis, and most people would have folded, but not Diana. Her story is about something far more powerful: the choices we make when life doesn't go according to plan. While we can't control what happens to us, we can always choose how we respond. Welcome to the podcast, Diana. How are you?
Thank you, Crystal. I'm so excited to be with you today.
I am excited. I've been waiting on this podcast since we booked it months ago. So I'm excited it's finally here. So, Diana, tell us, where in the world are you?
I am in sunny Daytona Beach, Florida.
Oh, excellent, excellent. Now, basketball or former basketball star, when basketball was your identity, who were you outside of that sport?
Within basketball, I was often like the team player, the one that wanted everybody to work together and win together. So I wore a similar identity outside of the sport because I was a middle child. And so naturally, you can become the peacemaker and wanting everybody to get along and work together within the family, but also kind of across the family unit and with my friends as well.
So, Diana, I'm assuming that when you tore your ACL the first time, you were playing basketball, correct?
I was, yes. I was a freshman in college and was in practice right after the team was solidified. I think it was a few days later. I tore it in practice.
So when you find out that you have torn your ACL, what is the first thing that goes through your mind?
One of the first things that went through my mind was, okay, this is why I graduated from high school early, was to get to play college basketball sooner. And that just ended. So that was definitely one of the first things that hit me, was the impact of, okay, now why am I here?
Right. So a lot of people, and I don't know if I agree with this mentality, but whenever people get hurt, specifically sports stars, the first thing is stay strong, don't worry about it. Those, things start coming in. Do you feel pressure, or did you feel pressure to stay strong and don't worry about it? You'll come back stronger than ever?
I think, it was a new experience on multiple levels for me because I was a freshman in college. So I was getting used to everybody. I went to a small Christian high school, so we didn't have like an athletic trainer or a training room. And so that was there was a whole bunch of new experiences coming at me along with being injured. And I don't think I felt pressure, but it was just more the dynamic of just still wanting to be a part of the team and do what I needed to do. So what I needed to do changed. I needed to start my practice time frame in the training room and then come up and encourage the team at the end, or vice versa. So it changed what I needed to do, but I also was committed to, when the doctor tells you can be cleared in 9 months or a year, right? You want to meet the goal or exceed the goal, right? So that pressure was more personal. I don't think it was anybody else coming at me to challenge me to stay strong or exceed the expectations.
Looking back, Diana, when you tore your ACL in basketball practice, what did that injury teach you about control in your life?
Well, I was reminded quickly, I made a decision to graduate from high school early to play basketball. And that was beyond my control. I was also, at the time, in my English literature class, we were asked to read Viktor Frankl's A Man's Search for Meaning, which is a powerful book. I can remember the first chapter, I was like, that's a little dry. But then it was very relevant for my situation. I felt kind of humbled for being frustrated with having a torn ACL when you're reading a story of somebody from a Nazi prison camp, and he can still choose positive. And one of his lasting quotes or variations of a quote that really impacted me and has impacted me from that point on in my journey to today is, no matter what happens to us, nobody can take away our freedom to choose how we respond. And that was a powerful and needed lesson then. But my goodness, it was only shaping me for what was to come.
Absolutely. So you tear your ACL a second time, the same ACL. So how far in between your first tear did your second tear happen?
Well, oddly enough, it happened 2 days before my annual recheck to be cleared from my surgeon. So I was prepped to walk in to be fully cleared, and instead I walked in saying, I think I tore it again.
What? So what, were you playing basketball again with the second
Yeah.
tear?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I had a brace on. I mean, at that point in time, I don't know what they do today, but you had a brace specifically fitted for you. So I was wearing a brace in practice, but I still managed to tear it again.
What was your emotions like the second time around tearing your ACL in the same knee 2 days before you're supposed to be cleared to play basketball again?
Well, excuse me, I'm sorry about this cough hanging. Well, actually, in practice, when it happened, I was like kind of unsure, right? Did I do that again? And I sat to the sidelines for a little bit, and coach was like, well, we need somebody to finish the drill. So I actually went back out and finished the drill, thinking, I've got a brace on. I probably didn't tear it again. And then when you see the swelling and all of that happen again, you realize I probably did tear it again. Oddly enough, my coach had asked me to consider taking an extra year for strength training and things like that. And I chose not to because I wanted to go to the Bahamas for the Christmas break tournament. So again, another, choice trying to control. So in retrospect, maybe I needed not to come back so soon, but I did still get to go to the Bahamas and be an encourager to my team. But I think I was on crutches instead of walking. So
after the first time you tore your ACL, did you think about quitting?
No, I didn't. I think that's an element of, like, doctors are very, particularly sports medicine, orthopedic surgeons, they're not used to people quitting, athletes quitting. They're used to them strength training, recovering, and continuing. So I don't think quitting ever entered my mind after the first time.
Okay. So you tear your ACL as a freshman in college, you tear it again, and then further down the line in life, you end up getting a divorce. How long were you married before you got a divorce?
We were right around that 7-year itch time frame. I didn't know that was a term at the time, but I learned that quickly when people would reference, oh yeah, no, you're at the 7-year itch. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's where I am.
So when you get this divorce, does it feel like a failure? Do you feel like a failure?
It certainly was a disappointment. And I mean, I was raised, right? You don't get a divorce, right? You stay together. And it was I feel like I could say that I tried everything I could in terms of, let's do counseling, or let's go to a marriage weekend together. And I tried whatever I could to make it work, and the person chose to walk out. And so certainly there was lessons for me to learn, but I didn't, I felt like I did everything I could in order to make it work. And that was important for me, to not feel like a failure. It was that I tried to do everything I could, and I learned from the mistakes that I made along that way.
Mhm. Was there a moment during the divorce or once the divorce is final, Diana, that you realize you are stronger than you thought?
I, yeah, stronger than I thought. Yeah, I think a part of my emotion of processing it all was not just the impact to me, but the impact to my family, my parents, right? The extended family, to his family as well, because my nature is, as I mentioned earlier, right? I want everybody to get along in that peacemaker scenario. So I also went to, okay, how's this going to impact everybody else? How do I still stay connected to them and communicate? And for many years, in fact, that's been a long time ago, but I still hear from his uncle as well as some of his cousins, and that's really important to me because that means that the relationships were not just because of a marriage; they were deeper than just like because of an obligation, and that's important to me. I do not like to just say goodbye. If it's a relationship worth keeping and maintaining, it's important to me that I continue to do that.
What choices did you make, Diana, after your divorce that helped you come to peace with the divorce, but also helped bring peace in your life?
You know, that's a great question. I remember I could kind of tell the end was coming before the end was final. And I remember just different moments of being alone at home and just feeling disappointed or embarrassed at some level. And okay, if I go out on my own, people are going to ask, where they are. And so just to avoid the questions. And it took me through some incredible, I would say, like Bible reading and book reading. One of my books that impacted me at the time was the book Captivating by Stacey Eldridge. And it was a great book on just, it's okay to be alone as a female, right? There are multiple, if you walk into a party and you're alone, don't feel alone. Look for the other ladies that are alone and go be a friend to them. And it just helped me to remember that mindset of don't make it about me, make it about somebody else that I can help. And then your confidence level maybe down really low, but it shifts to up, right? Because you're not worrying about you, you're worrying about who can I help? And that might be feeling just like me. And that was an impactful shift for me in terms of lessons as I was navigating through prepping for divorce and then as well as after the divorce.
Have you, well, let me preference that question with this question. How long have you been divorced?
Well, this is a trick question. So I've been married, I'm married for the third time. So
Okay.
I was divorced for a few years before I remarried. And so.
Okay. So during that time after the divorce, before you were remarried, how long, and I'm assuming that you did forgive your ex-husband and also forgave yourself for the mistakes you said that you made in the marriage. How long did it take you to forgive your ex-husband as well as yourself? And how did you come to that forgiveness?
I had some instrumental like friends and pastors that talked with me through multiple different things. And I don't, I didn't take a long season of time. It took me, I'm a journaler. So it took me acknowledging and just writing out, okay, this is where I went wrong. This is what I learned. And then I was able to move past it. With forgiving my former spouse, that was there hurt involved? Like, absolutely. Was there people that would come to me 6 months later and say, I was tempted to come see you because I think they were really cheating on you. And I could just look at them and say, I really wish you would have talked to him and not me because I wasn't doing anything wrong.
Right.
was. And so you don't have to apologize to me. Probably best for you to apologize to him, because he was in the wrong and you didn't say anything. And so then you're not really a friend to him. And I don't, God forgives me for everything I do wrong. So I know that I need not to hold grudges. It does not help me to not forgive. And so forgiveness is important to me to process as quickly as possible and move on. So I still talk to him every once in a while. In fact, I used to watch college basketball games where he worked. So I would see him and just wave hi and talk through it, right? I have, it does not help any soul to hold a grudge and not forgive and move on, because it just is a burden you carry on your shoulder that you don't need to carry with you. We have enough burdens to bear, let alone not forgiving and moving on.
That is absolutely true. But Diana, you just said something that really caught me off guard. So when you're talking to the friend, you tell the friend that you should have apologized to your former spouse because he was the one doing wrong and the friend did not go and talk to them.
Yeah.
That is a mindset that I've never heard before. How did you come to that mindset that the shame, the apology should not come to me? It should go to the person that was doing wrong.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's a very it's a biblical principle, right? If somebody is doing something wrong, you go to them and you talk to them about it. And it's really hard to do, right? I mean, that's often the area we avoid, right? That's a difficult conversation. But it's the right conversation, because we often, I'm looking at you and I have an obvious blind spot. We often don't see when we're in the midst of doing something that's wronging somebody else. And it takes a true friend to call out the blind spot. And so that was just the realization that hit me. I think the person came to me to say, I'm sorry. And I'm like, well, I've moved on, right? But I think it would have very much helped my ex-spouse for you have said something to him, because it might have prevented him from continuing to wrong me.
Right. Yes. Okay, so Diana, you have had an interesting life, to say the least. You tore your ACL twice, same one, same leg. You went through a divorce, and then you hear the C word, that you have cancer. What was your immediate reaction when the doctor told you this?
I can still picture that. I had dinner with that doctor last week. And he pulled me into his office. I knew, I got a call to come into the office after a biopsy. And when you get that call and you have to come in, it's going to be some type of bad news.
Mm-hmm.
I still wasn't expecting to hear cancer as the bad news. But he pulled me into his office, talked with me very kindly, gave me a hug and explained the diagnosis, and that it was a rare form of cancer. And I needed to, travel at least 4 hours away in order to have somebody that could help me. And so you're initially met with like shock and going, okay, it's going to be okay, right? Because that's how I process things, as you just get back up, keep going. And so I held my emotion until he and his nurses got up to give me a hug. And then that was the reality of, okay, this is bigger if they're going to get up and give me a hug, because we probably can't think of many doctors or nurses that give us a hug.
Exactly.
Right? And then I went home that day. I was about 6 months into being a divorced single mom of 2 young boys, and they were at school. So I was able to go home and sit in my condo and Google, look up things, and not really learning anything, because when you have a rare form of cancer, there's not a whole lot to learn on Google. And kind of a little frustrated, like, okay, like, why now, right? There's a lot already happening. I'm an executive. I am a mom with 2 boys, and they're active boys, and I have a lot. And I have a friend knocked on my door, and I don't know how she got in because I lived in a condo and I didn't buzz her in. But she just walked in and said, Diana, I knew you were alone and you got a tough diagnosis, and I just wanted to come give you a hug and pray with you. And that was really impactful to me. She was not there long, but it just helped to remind me that it's going to be okay. And I've learned lots of lessons prior in life on I still get to choose how I respond. I still get to choose how I show up. I did not lose everything. I do not need to be a victim to this cancer journey. And so she helped to spawn going, okay, get back to who Diana is, right? We can do this. There's going to be good along this journey.
Did anything happen in your life, your ACL tears, your divorce? Did any of those things prepare you for where you were in that moment, receiving that cancer diagnosis?
I would say they absolutely had a part in that dynamic, because my grandmother was my parents, my whole family, right, very strong faith, but my grandmother was had a special connection with her, and she had passed away, but she was somebody that just always smiled and laughed and found the good in everything. And I strive to be that person, right, or to carry on that part of her legacy and still find a way to smile and to laugh and to keep moving forward. So you hit those moments, but I would tell you I also spend a lot of time with organizations around how negativity just sucks the air right out of organizations and teams. And so I have worked so hard to just be positive and lead the opposite direction. And sometimes the hardest person to lead is ourselves. And so I got to practice more on myself in that season. But then once that became a routine, I shifted to look at, okay, this I'm going to go into doctors and hospitals, places that I never ever would have been. So what is my opportunity to get to bring positive and light and encouragement to doctors and nurses and to fellow patients, and just find the opportunity instead of the problem.
How long, because what you are talking about throughout this conversation, Diana, is a learned behavior.
Yes.
Learning to look at the positive and focus on the positive instead of the negative. Learning to understand that I cannot control what happens to me, but I can control how I respond to that. How long did it take you to really walk in that mindset? Because, when I started the conversation, I said most people would have folded. Most people would have quit had they been in your shoes and had all of these different things happen in their lives. And if I'm being honest with you, Diana, I would not have blamed anyone who quit or folded or gave up in the midst of all of this. But you did not do that. How have you managed not to quit and not fold?
I had a doctor. I spoke with a group of doctors a few months ago, and one of them stopped me afterwards and said, Diana, most patients I know wouldn't still be smiling right now or be talking and sharing your story. You must have a solid foundation. And that made me smile, because I think that is really an element of how I am able to, is I have a foundation of faith and friends and family around me. I also have a daily routine of just getting up and having, usually it's 5 a.m. around that window, having some quiet time, having some reflection time, having some learning time, and thinking through, okay, what's the most important focus in my time today? Where do I need to add value? Where do I need to apply something that I've learned? And reflecting on that and making that a part of my routine every day has been really helpful for me, because I I always have a space, and I'm continuing to work on my foundation. I got to speak with some students a few weeks ago, and many times we start with a good foundation, but we don't continue to take care of it. And so that's really, it's not one and done, right? It's an ongoing daily habit to continue to build and maintain your foundation.
Diana, if someone is listening to you right now who is experiencing a setback, whether that's divorce or a cancer diagnosis or something else that is shaking their foundation, what is the one choice they can make today that would help them start to change everything, that would help them start to look at the positive instead of the negative?
You know, one thing that has been impactful for me has been to just sit and write it out, like write out. And sometimes it's handwriting, sometimes I type, right? However fast I want things to flow. But just get out all those, the frustrations, the disappointments, all the emotion, and write it out. For me, it's I'm writing it out and I'm giving that to God and going, okay, I want you to have this, right? And depending on your faith, you just write it out, right? That helps you to get it out of your head. I personally want to always make sure I'm giving it to him first. I'm writing it out before I go vent it everywhere, right? And complain to everybody about everything. Just want to write it all out and then just pause. Because that is a healing way for me to just release what it is. I've named it, I've written it out. And then, okay, how do I move forward? And for me, oftentimes a way to move forward has been to figure out who can I help or who can I serve. And I get that may feel hard depending on where your disappointment or your big discouragement is, but it's really hard to stay down when you are able to bring a smile to somebody else's face. It just is counterintuitive, and it's just really important to shift and not shift, step away from the focus on you and the disappointments, and okay, what can I do? What did I learn, and who can I help with this? Who can I help smile?
In telling your story, and thank you so much for telling your story on our platform, in telling your story, Diana, what is your intention in that space?
It's important to me to just add value and make a positive impact to the people around me, and to help people that are stuck to realize they can move forward. They can do it. And hopefully that helps them to see, right? If I can do it, I can still show up and still be smiling, that there is a way. There's always a way. And that is another aspect of an important part of my life, and just training, a lot of work I've done in the business world, but applies to me personally, because if I train on it, I have to believe it, is that there's always a way. And it may not be the way I wanted, right? Certainly I wouldn't pick to have one eye in this 12-year cancer journey, but there's still a way to enjoy life and to make the most of what I have. There's still a way.
Your two boys, Diana, how did you help them through this, through the divorce, through the cancer diagnosis? How were you able to help them perhaps look at the positive in light of what was going on in their life as well?
They were very little when the divorce first happened and when I was first diagnosed. So my youngest one was like close to 2. So he doesn't have a lot of memories of the beginning. The older one was in VPK or preschool, and he struggled quite a bit and couldn't really articulate what he was struggling about. So I think he got kicked out of 4 or 5 preschools, and in that season, and it was difficult. I learned a lot as a mom, and learn to get help because I wasn't able to get him to share what his struggles were. And so learn to get help. And he wrote me the sweetest note for Valentine's Day, mentioning how I was always a positive influence for him, even through going through all the hard things that I've gone through. And that I was always positive and that I always believed in him. And he knew that if I didn't fight for him, that he wouldn't be able to be doing the things that he is today. So.
Wow. Talk about a
I'll take that Valentine's Day
Day. Oh, wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. Okay. So as we get ready to wrap up, Diana, who do you think would make a great guest on the podcast? But you have to help me get them on.
Yes, Faith Bryant is who comes to mind. She's a fabulous professional, but has just fought a lot as a single mom and now a married mom, and I can relate to that, and I just admire her greatly.
And in closing, life will tear things from you: needs, dreams, marriages, and health. And it will hand you a diagnosis you didn't ask for and endings you didn't see coming. But as Viktor Frankl wrote in Man's Search for Meaning, there is one thing no one can take from you: the freedom to choose your response. And maybe that's the real power: not avoiding pain, not controlling outcomes, but standing in the middle of chaos and deciding, this will not define me. My choices will. Diana, thank you so much for sharing your story and being vulnerable on this podcast. I appreciate you so much.
I appreciate you too. Thank you.
And to my community, thank you so much for tuning in and watching. You can get Diana's podcast and all of my other podcasts on YouTube Podcasts as well as Apple Podcasts. And remember, you always have time to listen and learn on the go.